I had just moved into my first house that was located in a small town in southern Indiana. I got it for really cheap due to an event that happened about 3 years prior before moving in. A young woman who was about in her early 20s or 30s had lived in the house before me, and she mysteriously vanished without a trace. I didn't care, because the house came fully furnished, and plus I could grow in it over time as well. About 3 days in, I started to go through her stuff and make notes of what I could possibly give to family members. I started with the master walk-in closet, due to the fact I was eager to put my clothes up and stop living out of boxes and suitcases. In the back of the closet, in a small corner, sat a box that could be easily overlooked if you weren't paying attention. I opened it up like an archaeologist who had just discovered a tomb, and inside, to my surprise, was a bunch of photographs of the woman before she went missing. At the bottom was a laptop. I eagerly took it out and set it upon the vanity that was in the room. I thought I could possibly get a reward for making a cold case hot again, and maybe finding out what happened to her. And if it had nothing to offer for the police, then it would be even better, since it means I had just scored a new computer. Snooping around, I became giddy, because it revealed nothing until I got to the videos. It had appeared that she had been a YouTuber, vlogger, or both, and had a bunch of videos loaded. I clicked on one, and it was her exploring a place called Rosewood Park somewhere in California, which, from what she had explained, was a place that was the setting of one of her favorite YouTube series. Though after May 8th, 2018, there was a bunch of videos that didn't seem her style. There was about 15 videos that were simply titled entries with a corresponding number. There appeared to be one video that I didn't notice that didn't pertain to her vlogs. And it seemed that it didn't pertain to any of her vlogs, but was more of a personal note to whoever might find this. She was a very attractive woman, brown almond eyes, looked to be about 5'8", dyed strawberry blonde hair. Her original seemed black or close to it, judging by her roots, and a great body. She started, "I have let everyone know that I'm not going to be posting videos for a while, due to the fact that it seems like I'm being harassed and stalked by someone who is a little bit too deep into his, I think it's a male. Well, anyway, the person is way too deep into their fandom and has been sending me videos more disturbing than the original YouTube series is based on. I have also started to get these weird notes posted in my house and outside of it as well. So it could be more than one, but it's horrifying that whoever it is also seems to know where I live." She held up a piece of paper that had a roughly drawn circle with an X through it, and another picture that was very childlike in a way. It had what presumably was her, with a tall faceless man, with what looked like tentacles coming out from behind him, with the words, "Watch your back," written on it, with what could be described as chicken scratch. She then concluded, "I think if I just stay away from the internet for a while, they will probably just go away." I got up and went to the kitchen to get a beverage, since I knew it was going to be a very long viewing. Call it a curse, but like any human, there is a morbid curiosity to be the first to know. I sighed, preparing myself to go through hours worth of footage, just to know what had happened to the previous owner. Entries 1 through 5. Entries 1 through 5 were not really special, except entry 2. But you could tell whoever filmed it was at the very least a stalker. These entries showed her going over to friends or family's places, doing various activities, but weirdly, no one around the area noticed the filmer. In entry 2, what looked like to be the tall faceless figure was in her yard about 10 feet away from her. She didn't even notice it. Then what could be heard was a male voice say,
Operator, do you think she'll do? Is she the one you want to add?
There was no response, and the man filming went completely silent. Entries 6 through 12. The man filming was closer in these entries and also seemed to have an accomplice. Entry 6 was another fun-filled day of stalking the woman again, but the other entries turned out to be something more. Entry 7 was filmed by her. She started to talk in a panicked tone, how someone had hacked 2 of her websites. She picked up her camera and faced it at her computer. They are on 2 different windows. It showed 2 different websites, one labeled Marble Hornets and the other one, To the Ark. If it was not for the fact that this woman had been missing for 3 years, I would have thought this was a huge publicity stunt, or else a really clever hacker. I chuckled to myself, since I had heard of the series and had watched a couple episodes way back when. But if it wasn't for the fact that this woman had been missing for 3 years, I would have thought it was a huge publicity stunt, or a really bored hacker. She went on talking about how she had to shut down both of her sites, and how some of the videos contain images of what appeared to be of a disturbing nature. Before she turned off the camera, I could clearly see looking at her through the back window was a masked man who had brown hair, a yellowish-brown jacket, an athletic build, and appeared to be 5'11", and taking an educated guess, was probably around the same age or a bit older than her. The mask the man wore had feminine features, and it looked like the type that you could buy at a craft store for about $1 or so. The eyes and lips were black, making it look very cartoony, if anything. Entries 8 through 12. In these entries, the cameraman was somehow inside her home. He had the masked man with him in a couple of them. It appeared that they were exploring her house, like mapping out the layout and where all the hiding places were and all the exits. In one of them, the masked man asked the cameraman,
"Does he know when we can test her?"
Then the cameraman just shook his head no and then replied,
"Soon."
Entry 12 was the creepiest, because it appeared that they were done exploring her home, and just went to her bedroom and stood and watched her sleep. The cameraman reached out and tried to touch the side of her face, but his companion stopped it. Entry 13 through 14. Entry 13 showed 2 faceless creatures in her yard, looking at one of her windows. They turned their heads side to side in an inquisitive way. The cameraman made sure not to get too close to them, and turned it off after a while. Entries 13 through 14. In Entry 13, it showed 2 faceless creatures in her yard looking at one of her windows. They turned their heads side to side in an inquisitive way. The cameraman made sure not to get too close to them, and turned it off after a while. In Entry 14, they entered her house again. The cameraman put the camera in an area of the living room that also covered the dining and kitchen area as well, due to the open layout of the house. My mouth dropped when I finally saw who I had been filming. The guy couldn't have been comfortable. The mask that he wore was extremely skin tight, black in color, had a red stitch frown sewn into it, with red eyes, and wore an orange hoodie. He seemed to be about the same height as the other masked man, but was a bit more of an average build. He turned to the other masked man and said without his signature stutter,
"Tomorrow is the day. You will know if she will be an addition to the group or if she'll just be another one. I hope she proves herself."
The other masked man was emotionless in body language and just flatly replied,
"We'll see. We can't say. Some who appear useful are just useless, and those who are useless just feed him."
The masked man with female features went to the direction of her bedroom. Entry 15. I felt completely uneasy with all that I had seen, but I still wanted to know what had happened to her. At this point, it would have been completely useless to bring this to the police. I fear that they would have thought that I was mocking them. I clicked on the final entry, ready to see the woman's fate. Everything was quiet until it got to 12 midnight. That was when you could hear things breaking and a bunch of noises coming from the bedroom. Then within a minute, both the masked man and the woman came into the living room fighting each other. The masked man seemed unnaturally strong, since it didn't matter where in his joints she hit him, it did not make him flinch. The other masked man with red eyes came in through the front door and locked it. I noticed he had a pipe with him. He watched the two fight until she stabbed the masked man fighting her in the shoulder with what appeared to be a pocket knife. The masked man with red eyes came at her, but luckily she ducked out of the way, making him hit his accomplice. They fought amongst each other, which gave her time to go for the front door. But it wouldn't open. I watched her unlock it, but the thing wouldn't open for nothing. She ran to her bedroom and locked her bedroom door. The two males fought and knocked the camera over, and it went black. It came back on and showed the girl in her room choke the masked man with the female features. The man with the camera knocked her off him, and both were about to attack her at the same time until... In the doorway stood the faceless creatures with his tentacles out. The two masked men backed off, and the creature slowly came up to the woman. She tried to scream, but nothing came out. She tried to move, but she only managed to corner herself. The creature wrapped one of his tentacles around her neck and lifted her up. She tried to break its grasp, but to no avail. Two more tentacles came up to her face and forced her mouth open. The creature then pulled out a small bottle containing black liquid in it and forced it down her throat. The camera went black again, and when it turned back on, it showed a woman that was now dressed in regular clothes. She was, but wasn't herself. She almost looked like she was in a trance, with a grin that only a psychotic person would have. She sat on the couch in between the two masked men, who were also silent and trance-like. The creature was just out of view, and handed a mask to one of the masked men. The creature was just out of view, and handed a mask to the man whose mask had female features. He took it and put it on the woman, fixing it and fixing her hair, like how you would see a little girl do to her doll. Her mask was very similar to that of the man that had put it on her, except hers wasn't so cartoony looking. Then all four disappeared without even getting up, and the camera went black. I leaned back in my chair and put my hand to my face, rubbing my eyes, in confusion of all that I had watched. Just then, I heard a familiar female voice. Are the first ones always hard to do? With just as equal two familiar male voices. One said in a stutter,
Don't worry, you got this.
Then the other.
Yeah, we got your back.
I looked at the black of the screen on the laptop and saw three figures behind me.